So hello my beautiful race fans, how you be, how you doing? I am the Big Ticket, aka Tarig, here to talk to you about all things racing, all things motorsports, no matter the genre. That's what we're talking about today. Well, today is a little bit more narrowed down, I should say, because today we are going to be covering all things Daytona, with the wonderful starting to IMSA that occurred in the prior week. The day of which I am recording this is Sunday, February 14th, aka Valentine's Day. I handled my Valentine business. I hope you handled yours. Obviously, this is going to be coming out after the fact, so it's too late now if you're just now finding out about it. But yeah. This episode is really going to cover, things at Daytona, talking about the Rolex 24 hour, okay? And also talking about the Daytona Duels as well as the Daytona 500, which at this moment is going on right now. However, at the time I'm recording, I believe they're in a weather delay. I'm not 100% sure. That's just what I believe. I'm pretty sure it's still in the weather delay. They're only about 15 laps in. It was a fairly decent start. That's all I really have to say about the Daytona 500. I will be covering that more in depth, of course, next week when, the race is actually finished, results are finalized, and all the action is truly out there for me to uncover and for me to really talk about. Now, y'all know me, of course. If you've listened to the podcast or watched the podcast before, head over to youtube.com, all right, and look up the Tarig Motorsports show. You will know that I am old-fashioned. I like to write my notes down. I like to really, take my time, analyze certain races and all that stuff. Or, usually just spend some time and make sure I have all my things articulated and correct. Now, going in with this, like I said, I'm covering the IMSA. Okay, the WeatherTech Championship. All right, Rolex 24, whatever you want to call it. It's called Rolex 24 for sponsorship purposes, but whatever. Plenty of spins all throughout the race, but I want to talk about right at the beginning for the GTLM class. For the GTLM class, I'm pretty sure it's a GTLM. A big spin out right at the beginning of the actual race. Team RLL. I'm not gonna say the name because I don't feel like pronouncing the whole thing, but one of their drivers, I believe Bruno or something like that. I have it in my notes somewhere. Is all I really gotta tell you. Yes, the WeatherTech Porsche and the GTLM gets spun out by the BMW, driven by Bruno Spengler. And then, honestly, it ran off course a few turns later, and then shortly after that loses the rear, and as it completely falls off of the vehicle. All of that within the first 12 minutes of a 24-hour race. Oh my goodness, what a way to start off. Now, don't get me wrong, when I was actually watching this, I was quite upset. I was very upset over the fact that, the BMW was actually trying to make those moves right at the beginning of the race. I was very upset about the fact that it did end up spinning out Porsche. If you are new to this, podcast, you should know that my favorite two car companies, whatever, for racing are Porsche and Ford, and those are the two that I really back and I really enjoy. And I was a little upset seeing how this is one of the only few Porsches still in the running in the in the IMSA altogether, rather than just GTLM. It's heartbreaking to see, but he definitely, he tried to stay within contention, but obviously with a spin out right at the beginning of the race, starting at the back of the pack, it would take a lot. It takes a lot to fight back. Now, plenty of spin outs within the first hour as guys are setting up for positioning, especially in the LMP3 category. Oh my gosh, it was just trouble, practically just comedy, constant spin outs in the LMP3s, and just crashes as well. Guys, the thing about it is the LMP3 category and the GTLM category run at about the same pace. Yes, the cars look two totally different. Obviously, one is a road car, one is a prototype car, but they run at relatively the same pace. They relatively run the same speeds, and some of these guys don't necessarily seem to understand that. So they're thinking that they have a free passerby, but don't understand that their vehicles are putting out just about the same output. So it's really an actual contention race when these guys are neck and neck. Now, if you put a DPI with a GTLM, oh, it'll smoke it any day. It'll drive right past it, just swing around the outside and go ahead and go on right past it. But with LMP3 category, they can't necessarily do that. Some of those guys didn't seem to understand that, thinking that they had a position when they really didn't. Going into a turn, ended up getting hit. It was practically their fault. I'm glad nobody got penalized for some of these things. Obviously, other ones they did get penalized for, but I'm glad that the one I'm talking about right now, that happened within the first few hours, or what happened within the first hour, a good bit of them. I'm glad that those people didn't necessarily get penalized, because these were simply avoidable if people understood. Obviously, racers understand what vehicles they have, but if they understood that they couldn't do certain overtakes and stuff like that in certain positions. Now, there were, all throughout the race, the bus stop area of the track was a major altercation point, honestly, because plenty of guys keep thinking, like I just described, that they have a free position to go past, or they're thinking that they can basically outmaneuver and get around who they're trying to get around going into that left turn, which then bumps into that right. But it's not like that at all. See, because most of the guys don't realize that they need to carry that speed past before they can start braking, rather than braking right there at that edge. You know what I'm saying? They have to have the position first, really, before they can actually go into that. A lot of people didn't seem to necessarily understand that, and the bus stop area became a specific point of action for just spin outs and altercations and crashes between cars and between, you know, different classes. The IMSA through Rolex 24 hour, that is a multi-class operation. That is a multi-class race. So of course you're gonna have different classes clashing with each other, and it's gonna, you know, result in problems throughout the race. And the bus stop was a perfect example of that. Always commotion and action and crashes and spin outs that happened in that location for the entirety of the race. I believe plenty of them were avoidable if guys would understand that sometimes, yes, you want to push the metal the entirety of the race, but you also want to back off to make sure that you can stay in the race and fight for a later time. Now, of course, the DPI category was absolutely amazing. Constant action, constant contention, especially with the Chip Ganassi Cadillac. Unfortunately, though, at the end of the race, with only about 4 or 5 laps to go, or 6.5 minutes or something like that left within the race, tire blew, puncture. And that was definitely, you know, I talked about it one of my previous episodes. Kevin Magnussen was actually being moved, actually had moved and was actually driving at the beginning of the race. I believe he was the one piloting that DPI, and that Cadillac DPI, sorry. And I know that, you know, he's great, fantastic, had them in good position, and then, you know, all throughout the 24 hours they did what they had to do to make sure that they maintained that position. And of course they were in second place. Now, the reason I say the DPI category was so amazing is because even at the end, guys weren't necessarily, obviously there were guys that were lapped, yes. Actually, I don't think so. Now that I think about it, I think everyone was relatively on that same lap, and everyone was putting down that same relative metal. Now, it was about 16 minutes to go. You know, the Chip Ganassi Cadillac as well as the Acura were going at it, you know, on a really strong basis. A ton of action to see. Definitely a lot of close calls, them navigating through traffic or utilizing traffic as a strategy to try and get some space between them and the opposition. Definitely a sight to see. Now, oh, sorry. Did I say Mazda? It was an Acura, whatever, but Cadillac versus Acura for the 1 and 2 position was just an awesome battle to see. I would advise anyone, head on over to YouTube, watch the highlights or something, or check out the entire race if you want. They literally uploaded like full blocks, like 4 hours at a time of the race and whatnot, and it's definitely a good battle to see. The DPI category definitely was what I expected from racing. This is one of those things where I really expected that from this, and they delivered fully. Now, like I said, they served that big blowout at the end, which resulted in the Cadillac having a pit. Luckily, they were just before the pit stop when the tire puncture happened and the blowout happened, so they were able to pull right into the pits and get that tire changed and everything. But, you know, watching the actual race and whatnot, watching it live, you will see when the camera switched over to the team and the family and whatnot, you saw they knew. They had second place in a bag, and if not second place, then they could have battled for first, and it would have been a very, a real, action-packed finish to a race. But they knew exactly what the hell happened as soon as he pulled into the pits, realizing that opportunity is now lost, and the Ganassi Cadillac ended up dropping back into 5th place. GTLM, the GT Le Mans category, was pretty much dominated by Corvette. I'm gonna just say it, literally, Corvette, that one song. It was pretty much dominated by Corvette all throughout the entirety of the race. Them C8s, I don't know what they doing with them, but they had it on lock from beginning to end. Those Cadillacs had it on lock. They pretty much were just battling between the two of them, sometimes trading leads here and there, but really just they were always next to each other, or they were always within seconds of each other. They were always, right there, and they were in the 1 and 2 position, and of course that is how they finished. 1 and 2 finish for Corvette in the GT Le Mans category. Congratulations to the Chevy Bros. Now the GT Daytona category was, in my personal opinion, it was uninspiring, I should say. I did not enjoy the GTD category at all. Yes, I know that there were some points of action. I can't even recall them because there were other things. DPI was definitely at a different level. LMP2 was also had its own little thing going on. And GTLM, of course, one of my favorites, and I believe that we're not going to see it anymore after this year, which sucks. But it is, pretty much dominated by Corvette year after year, either Corvette or Porsche. So I understand, why it's basically being written off and taken out. But the GT Daytona category, to me, was definitely uninspiring. There was no real action, in my opinion, and contenders were too far for it to even be a competition. Guys were maybe first place, and then the second place would be like a whole lap behind. You know what I'm saying? That kind of aspect of it really took out any enjoyment of the GTD category, and I feel like it might be like that for the GT Daytona class throughout the rest of the year. And if it is, I would rather them get rid of the GTD rather than GT Le Mans. Yes, it is dominated by Porsche. Yes, it is dominated by Corvette. But it's exciting racing. It's impactful racing for the public as well. Definitely something that people would like to see. Yes, I know it was just a 1-2 finish for Corvette, but it had very insightful action in between guys that were battling for 3rd, 4th, 5th. You know what I'm saying? It was a decent amount of action within the GTLM category, but the GT Daytona was just horrendous in my opinion, and I don't believe that I don't really care for it, honestly. I don't really care for it, but I will go over podiums and all that stuff right now. This is probably going to be the boring part, I guess. But in the DPI podium, first place, the number 10 Konica Minolta Acura ARX 05. Drivers are Helio Castroneves, Alexander Rossi, Felipe Albuquerque, and Ricky Taylor. Number 2 in the DPI category. Second place is the number 48 Alley Cadillac Racing Cadillac, driven by Jimmy Johnson, Kamui Kobayashi. He actually finished off the race for that Cadillac and came in second place, and he basically inherited the position once the Chip Ganassi Cadillac was taken out, driven by Kevin Magnussen, and I forgot the guy's name. But in second place, and also there was a dude named Simon and Mike Rockenfeller also drove that number 48 Alley Cadillac. Third place in the DPI category, if you didn't know, was number 55 Mazda Motorsports with Jonathan Bamarito, Harry Tinkle, and Oliver Jarvis. Now, if I butchered those names, I'm sorry. I don't really care for people's names, if I'm being honest with you, unless I'm like truly invested and interested in it. Don't get me wrong. The DPI category was definitely fantastic. Definitely fantastic. But I didn't really care to learn the names. I know which car won. I know which team won. That's really all that mattered to me. But in the GTLM podium, we have the number 3 Corvette Racing in their Corvette CAR with Nicky Katzberg, Jordan Taylor, and Antonio Garcia. And coming in at number 2, because Corvette got that 1-2 finish, is the Corvette Racing Corvette with Tommy Milner, Nick Tandy, and Alexander Sims. Great jobs to those fellas. Definitely a fun thing, a fun little battle between the two to see, as well as they, went, sometimes they would trade leads, basically trade who was in the lead and whatnot. Definitely still pretty action-packed between just those two in the front pack. They definitely separated from the rest of the pack, obviously, but definitely still some good action between those two. I'd say they're basically tug-of-war and swapping and all that stuff. And of course, third place was a number 24 BMW with Team RLL with their BMW M8 GTE, driven by John Edwards, Jesse Cron, Augusto Farfus, and Marco Whitman. I don't really have much to say to those guys. Just congrats all together. Like I said, the GTLM category was definitely, it definitely had a good bit of action, and it definitely, it was insightful to see. It was action-packed to see, and it was definitely riveting. And I feel as though it should not be taken out of the IMSA catalog or the IMSA classes. I feel like it should stay, and that's about it. Now, LMP3 podium, the number 74 Riley Motorsports, driven by Oliver Askew, Spencer Piggott, Scott Andrews, and Gar Robinson. Congrats to those guys on their first place. Now, like I said, the LMP3 practically comedy, constant crashes and things like that. Those guys thinking that they got some beast when they really just basically got a road car. Plenty of spin outs, plenty of altercations and touches and all that stuff within the race, but they pulled through, did what they needed to do. Coming in the second place is at number 33, Sean Creech Motorsport. I don't feel like saying the name of these cars because they're prototype vehicles. You're never going to hear these shits again. But driven by Lance Willsey, Yao Barbosa, Wayne Boyd, and I don't even know what the hell I wrote here, but I'm gonna guess Yan Claret. And then number 6, coming in at third place, was the Milner Motorsport America, whatever the hell they drive, with Moritz Kranz, Lawrence Hauer, Ken Koch, and Stephen McClure, or McAleer, however you say his name. And then of course we go into the GTD, or the GT Sleep podium. First place goes to number 57 in the Windward Racing Mercedes, driven by Mauro Engel, Philip Ellis, Indy Dunch, and Russell Ward. I'm pretty sure I butchered Indy's name. I am so sorry. And number 2, the one that I actually enjoyed, one vehicle that I would advise everyone to look up because it just looks cool. The number 75 Sun Energy Mercedes AMG, driven by Kenny Habul, Michael Grenier, and Rafael Marciello, and Lucas Stoltz. It looks wonderful. Congrats to those guys. I love that team. That's practically the only good thing about the GTD class, in my personal opinion, is that number 75 Sun Energy. I also reposted a photo of it. I had to time my snapshot. Like there was a thing with a screenshot by the IMSA on Twitter. If you want to head on over to my Twitter, you can check it out there and see the actual photo that I screenshotted. It was actually of the Sun Energy. I love the Sun Energy team. Go check it out. It's a dope photo too. You can head on over to my Twitter at TheBigTicket07, or it will be up in that left top corner somewhere. Where was I? And of course, coming in third place was the number 1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini Huracan, driven by Andrea Caldarelli, Madison Snow, Brian Sellers and Corey Lewis. Now the LMP2 podium was LMP2 was fairly interesting. It wasn't action-packed and nothing like that, but it was definitely fairly interesting, and I truly did pretty much enjoy myself watching the LMP2 category. They're a little bit faster than the LMP3, and they had some pretty good contention. Now, of course, finishing off first was the number 18 Era Motorsport, driven by Kyle Tilley, Dwight Merriman, Paulo, I don't know how to say this man's name, Chatton, and Ryan Dalziel. Now, coming in at second place was the number 8 Tara Motorsport, driven by John Ferrano, Gabriel Aubry, Tim Beret, and Matthew Vajaviere. I don't know how to say the guy's name. I'm not his father. And then, of course, coming in third place was the number 82 Dragon Speed USA LLC, driven by Fabian Schiller, Christopher Mies, I don't know how to say that, Devlin DeFrancesco, and Eric Lux. Now, I talked about the action, talked about the highlights already. Really upset about the Porsche getting spun on at the beginning, but things happen. Now we go into NASCAR. Now, I watched the duels. I did watch the duels, and I only watched a little bit of the actual Daytona 500. I'm hoping that I'm going to catch the rest of it tonight. I will have to check back on that because I don't know if it's actually still going on. But the duels were amazing. Denny Hamlin, my favorite to win, did not. He did not win. That was heartbreaking to see. Seeing as how he was in seeing as how he was in third place for a majority of the actual race, 60 laps for these duels. Also, 60 laps. He was in third place for a majority of this race, and really fighting and really, doing what he needed to do. And I was definitely thinking he was going to make a move, but after 60 laps, what is the main issue that a lot of drivers will run into? Fuel reservation. And I'm pretty certain, I'm not pretty certain, I know for sure, he ran out of gas. Coming into the final bend of the race, Denny Hamlin runs out of gas and seemingly drops back all the way to about 11th place, and then the car just rolls and crosses the line, and he has to hop out and basically push his car to pit, I guess. I'm not 100% sure where he pushed it to, but he had to push his car at the end of that. Winners were Eric Almirola. Number 2 was Christopher Bell. Number 3 was Ryan Newman. Number 4, Joey Logano put together an impressive race and came around on the outside at the last second of the race to come in for 4th. And then, of course, in 5th was Ryan Preece. I didn't really care for him throughout the race. It's not my fault. Now, duel number 2 at Daytona. Austin Dillon with Chevrolet number 3 came in first. Bubba Wallace came in second place in the number 23 Toyota. Kevin Harvick came in third with the number 4 Ford. Kyle Busch. I'm gonna remember that name for the Daytona 500. Let's see. I'm gonna see where he's at. In placement. He was in 4th for the duel number 2, and of course Chase Elliott was in 5th with his number 9 Chevrolet. Now I could go over this a little bit. Pretty good start altogether. Everyone really pushed the metal. Everyone was, nobody really made a mistake. Everyone was doing what they needed to do. They were side by side for a good bit of that start. Then around lap 36, there was a caution as 3 cars spun out. Luckily, it wasn't nothing too damaging. Guys were able to come back on the track pretty much right after the spin out. There was basically a yellow flag, and everybody was able to come back together. I believe pretty much everyone was able to keep racing. And then, of course, as we go down with only 4 laps to go, well, not a big, but pretty decent crash. As basically it was 3 cars. basically. It's two cars right here side by side, then another one slides its way in. As that one is sliding its way in, the car here does not see it, and it tries to push closer because now I can get a better draft on the car in front. Did not see this one coming in between this and that car. Ended up hitting and turning, hitting the other car. God, I hope that was a good demonstration. I really do. If you want to see the demonstration, head on over to YouTube or check the link in the description. There's always a link in the description for everything that I do, especially when it's for you. The listeners, the people. Now, yeah, with 4 laps to go, big crash, 3 wide crash. That brings out the second caution. And, you know, as the race goes on, that's about it. I already covered the winners. Yeah, so that was basically the IMSA coverage as well as the Cup Series duels at Daytona International Speedway. Now, the Daytona 500 is currently going on, so I will actually try to look this up to see where it's at exactly. But I am glad you stopped by. I am glad that you came to listen to this, to this podcast today. I'm glad. Now, I want to say, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful week. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. All those good things, because I am relatively in a good mood. Now, as of right now, I believe it's still paused. Yeah. All right. Nope, it's not back on. They are. Yeah, it is. It is back on. Okay, they are racing. They are racing now. And oh, well, I'm giving you live update right now. Denny Hamlin takes stage 1 of the Daytona 500. The rest of the top 10 are Priest, Dillon, Larson, Cindric, Bell, Wallace, Logano, Chaston, and Custer in the top 10. My guess is they are no longer dealing with inclement weather as of right now. And they're trying to really race and do what they need to do. Hopefully everything is gravy and they're gonna, you know, keep pushing. I'm glad that the race is back on. As I was saying, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for really watching the show and you know, and just sharing with your peoples, dropping a like, dropping a comment. Let me know how you feel about the IMSA. Let me know how you feel about the GTD category. Let me know if you think it's interesting or whatever. I don't know, man. Let's argue. Let's debate. That's about it for me, though. That's really all I have to say for this episode and say for this week. There's gonna be some gaming stuff coming out on my YouTube channel this week. You know, it's gonna be some pretty good racing, pretty bad driving. You know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, man. It's video games. But that's about it, man. Thank you for stopping by. If you want to check me out on my social medias, head on over to Instagram at Tarig, or you could head on over. The best way to get live updates on what's going on in the motorsports world is to follow me on Twitter or check out the Twitter page at the Big Ticket 07. It is the best, the absolute best way to get constant updates on what's going on in the motorsports world. Retweets, posts, you know, all that kind of stuff, fleets, all that kind of stuff that's going on with in the motorsports world. I'm on top of it all. That's pretty much it. Oh, and also follow me on my TikTok at the Big Ticket 07. I just post like some relatively insightful stuff when it comes to motorsport racing. That's about it, though. Thank you for checking out the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You are appreciated. Peace.